Welcome to Fix It for Josh's Sake. Today I'm working on a 1972 Arctic Cat Lynx. I just pulled off the drive axle, put new drive sprockets on, put a new track on while I was at it, and then put the chain and drive gears back on. I want to take you through some of the things that I learned as I fix it for Josh's sake. For starters, we got to go down here and see this nice new track I just put on, new to me. Somebody did a really nice job of rebuilding it. The reason why I'm so excited about it is it doesn't have a single broken cleat or missing rivet or anything like that, and it's got some nice ice picks on it as well. While I was replacing that track, I came up and got real close and personal with the drive axle, and that's when I realized that these drivers were garbage. All chipped up, getting real weather cracked, getting really brittle. So those need to go. So what I did is I went ahead and got myself some brand new ones. You can find these on eBay. You can find them from different sellers online. And so a brand new set of these was put onto a new axle and installed right up in there. When I was pulling this axle off, though, I quickly noticed that these bearings were junk. So you need to get yourself some bearings that are SA 205-16 eccentric bearings. What that means is there's a collar here that spins and locks it tight onto the shaft. So if you have bad bearings when you're replacing your axle, SA 205-16 should be the part number that you need to replace those. From there, I want to talk about these for a minute. These plates, they are on the sides of the axle like that, and sometimes people get a little confused of where they sit. So let's move over here and look at the actual axle that's in there right now. These two plates sit on the outside. They bolt together on the outside, and there is a rubber O-ring that sits inside of here to make sure that the gear oil cannot seep into the axle itself. Now that's the left side where the gears are and the chain is at. But if we come around here to the right side where the speedometer cover is, both of the clamps that are like this are actually on the inside of the bulkhead down underneath here in the tunnel. And so don't get confused and put these on the wrong side. On the right side, they go inside the tunnel. On the left side, they go outside of the tunnel. One last detail to mention when you're putting your new drives on is make sure you have this axle set and make sure you have these drives sitting side by side, because ironically, you can actually bolt a set of new drivers on and have this high point be different than this high point. It doesn't seem like it's possible, but that is a 5-point bolt pattern. And that 5-point bolt pattern means that you can actually rotate these high points off a little bit if you don't have them sitting there and matching up and getting the holes all lined up. From there, I want to talk about how we drive this axle. So we come down over here, pop the hood, and we've got our larger sprocket. That's, I think, a 39 tooth. And then we got our smaller sprocket. I think this is a 17 tooth. Key thing to remember is this is a 5/16 by 24 thread per inch bolt, and that's what you would need if you needed to tap out this axle in here or the drive axle down in here, which I actually had to do on both of those points to be able to get new bolts in. So 5/16 by 24, that's a fine thread tap, will allow you to clean out the threads here and clean out the threads here to make life a little easier. The second thing is I thought I had myself a good sprocket, top and bottom, which I did, and I was cleaning up my chain here, and I figured out, I'll be darned if there wasn't a little chip taken out of the top of that chain piece and another chip out of that one. So this is the chain that was in this sled, and as you can see, I marked it. It is garbage, went away, and I dug myself out a good chain that has all the pieces that I need for it to run a long time. Next, I want to talk about chain deflection. How much slack do we need on this chain? The Arctic Cat manual for the 1972 Lynx says a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of chain deflection. So I feel pretty good about that. That's me lining things up with my eye. But with this eccentric bearing here, if you do need to move it, get yourself a deep well a 9/16 inch socket, put it on your bolt, one of the bolts that goes into the eccentric bearing, and then you can actually use that to either move that eccentric bearing looser or move it tighter. Right now I have it set so that this bolt is pretty much right up against the edge of this housing here, and that'll help keep it tensioned and nice and snug in there. These do have a tendency to loosen up, so that brings me to my next soapbox I want to get on here. Let's not use this old school washer like that. That doesn't have enough grip. We're not sure that it's going to grab on here, okay? Now when I took this apart, the one that was in here looked like this, and it has the teeth on the inside, which is fine, I guess. I just have a hard time seeing how that's really grabbing much either. So I went over to my bolts and washers bin, and I'm grabbing this one because I feel like it grips more on the outside to hopefully hold everything together. So if you look down in here, I actually have that one going underneath of a thick washer, and then the old school one that was in this sled is next, and then my bolt head is in there. I know I'm adding a couple extra pieces of hardware in there, but for me to feel like this eccentric bearing isn't going to spin forward like they have a tendency to do, I am just kind of doing a linkage system here to get everything locked together. Another detail to consider is because this is an eccentric bearing and we have bolts that are going into that eccentric bearing at different points, the distance that this bolt hole is going to have before it would bottom out on the center shaft is 3/4 of an inch. But by the time we come over here to the bolt that's back here and we look at this distance, it's a lot less. We're lucky if we could say that's a 1/2 inch. So pay attention to how far you're threading these in to the eccentric bearing holes before you tighten that jam nut, because I have seen this axle completely locked tight by people over tightening these bolts here and having them jam right down into the axle. So let's avoid doing that. That's how my eccentric bearing is going to be set up and tightened down. Now, in order to get that done, I needed a crow's foot, and it is a 9/16 inch bolt. I have a 15 millimeter, and that is the same. So between a crow's foot and a swivel and an extension, I was very easily able to tighten those down nice and snug, and everything's good, and we still have that proper 1/4 inch of deflection that we want in here. And I'm putting it snug because I figure as it breaks in and everything settles in, it's going to kind of open back up to the 1/2 inch max spec that we want for this chain. Now we're to the point where we get to put this chain guard on, and of course it's part of the oil reservoir. Now when I took these wing nutted bolts out, the rubber bushing that was back here was just destroyed and crushed, and actually it was pushed completely out to the outside of this and wasn't even a part of the flat surface of this bolt head. So I went to the hardware store and I got myself some 3/16 inch by 1.25 by 1/16 inch rubber washers, and you can do whatever you want. This is technically a 1/4-20 bolt, but I found that 3/16 inch does sit a little tighter and snugger because there's a bit of a recess after the threads that you can kind of see down in there, and so the snugger rubber washer fits against the shaft better, and hopefully it doesn't allow this to sandwich out and completely expand off of these holes and fall away like the last one had done. So that's my little strategy to help keep oil in here. And speaking of oil, my Arctic Cat manual said use Arctic Cat chain case lube, which it didn't tell me the weight or the spec or anything like that. And so I asked a few of my Arctic Cat buddies and landed on this SAE 75 weight -90. Some guys use a 80 weight -90. Some guys are using a 75-140. But I landed on this. I wanted it to be a little bit lighter because I'm going to be racing this on a lake And as you see, I put a little grease on this chain for now, but I wouldn't mind having a little less resistance when it comes to the oil. Yet I want it to help hold the chain together, keep it cool, keep it lubed so nothing is eroding or deteriorating. At the end of the day, I really don't want to see any metal filings down in the bottom of this case. So the way it's going to work is this is going to get bolted on with those 3 wing nuts, and then I am going to take my tube here, put in whatever it takes to get it to come out of this hole down here. Rumor has it it's 8 ounces. So that's what I plan on putting in here when it comes to putting oil into this chain case. Well, there we go. We got oil in the chain case here, got everything set, got the new axle, the new track. Everything's coming together real nice. I'm looking forward to taking this out to the lake and ripping around. Thanks for watching as I fix it for Josh's sake. If you like what I do and you enjoy these kinds of projects, give me a follow or a share or a comment and let me know what you're working on. I'd love to collaborate with you guys as we work on fixing it for Josh's sake.